Michael Jai White is an American actor and martial artist who has appeared in numerous films and television series. He is the first African American to portray a major comic book superhero in a major motion picture, having starred as Al Simmons, the protagonist in the 1997 film Spawn. White portrayed Jax Briggs in Mortal Kombat Legacy of 2011. White also portrayed boxer Mike Tyson in the 1995 HBO television movie Tyson. Back with his film Trouble Man, written, produced, directed by, and starring Michael Jai White, this film revives the spirit of 1970s urban action comedy with a modern twist. It premiered at the American Black Film Festival earlier this summer and features a dynamic ensemble, including Method Man, Orlando Jones, Gillian White, Levy Tran, Mike Epps, and Lala Anthony. Whether you're into martial arts, action-packed comedy, or nostalgic genre storytelling, Trouble Man delivers on every front. And now to give us more on this brand new film, we have the man himself, Michael Jai White. This is the QR Code with your hosts, Q Ward and Ramses Ja. All right, Mr. Michael Jai White, welcome to the show, man. How you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So you're someone who needs no introduction, but one of the things that we do around here is we give every guest a moment or so to talk about their story, a little bit about their background, their upbringing, and what leads them to today's conversation. Now, I know that, again, you're a well-known individual, but we'd like to extend the same courtesy to you just to familiarize our listeners with the conversation, the person we're having today's conversation with.
Yeah, well, I'm one of those people lucky enough to find what he's supposed to do in this world. I've been on my own since I was 14. I wound up being a school teacher before as an actor. And it still flirted with me, this industry. I enjoyed the acting and the writing and everything that connected with it, and then decided that I had to give it a shot. And so here I am, and here I still sit. So so that's a little bit of my background. I've been a martial artist ever since I was 7 years old. Okay. So it's just been a mainstay in my life, and it's helped me as far as discipline in every aspect of my life.
Sure. Well, you're a highly regarded individual, well-regarded martial artist as well. And obviously knowing a little bit about that just kind of helps frame, the story, the parts that we don't know at least. But let's get right to the brass tacks here. First thing I want to say, I want to make sure that we get this out of the way. I know congratulations are in order because Gigantic Studios, that's something that I would imagine you've been working on for a long time. So talk to us a little bit about Gigantic Studios and why it was important to open your own studio in your own state.
Well, yeah, I think it's very important, especially those of us that have, a specific thing to say. There's a lack of certain qualities of film, urban films, and I like to fill that up. I mean, like with this movie, I was very encouraged by some of the action movies that depicted strong male and female Black characters growing up. I was very influenced by people like Jim Brown and Fred Williamson, and the movies like Uptown Saturday Night and Piece of the Action, those type of things with Portier and Cosby, and that's missing in movies today. And so in a lot of movies where we take part in our own narratives, and so I just like to tell my own stories. So that's what brings me and I feel like the necessity of starting my own studio.
Sure. And I don't know if this is connected at all, but I remember during COVID there was an interview, and I couldn't tell you which platform it was, but this was around the time when all the Black Lives Matter protests were taking place. And I'm not sure if you were talking about a film or something, but the way that my memory, this was years ago now, of course, but the way that it's coming back to me, that you really had a lot to say and you were really challenging Hollywood to do better in terms of telling Black stories and really capturing kind of the plight of Black folks in this country. And you were, what I gathered from what you were saying at the time, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, was that there's a lot in the way of missed opportunities and a lot of people missing the mark in terms of what that moment was about. And you It seems as though you've kind of taken the path of like the Tyler Perrys, and I know Cat Williams was he was in the headlines recently about opening his own studio, doing the same thing. So is this kind of in that same vein where you're just like, hey, look, these folks aren't doing what we want them to do, so let's do it ourselves? Is that kind of the spirit behind this?
Well, yeah, definitely Tyler Perry. I've even before I met Tyler Perry, this was my plan.
Okay.
You know, and on one level, like I can't expect other folks to tell our stories.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? It just doesn't make sense. And you know, or even identify with what interests us. You know, there's certain level to where it just can't be expected anymore. And so I think it's incumbent upon us to take it in our own hands. Like I couldn't expect somebody to write Black Dynamite. You know, I mean, who's going to write Black Dynamite but me?
Right.
And there's a lot of things that I mean, I can't expect people to understand. Like I can't sell an intangible. And so if I were to even explain Black Dynamite to someone that doesn't know,
Doesn't get it. Yeah.
there's no way that they're going to get the nuances.
Sure.
And so just like with this movie, now you know I've got a background where you know people kind of can trust that I'm going to take into a place where they can't fathom exactly what the tone is, but they'll trust enough that I do know. And so, like when in this situation where I have a deal with Samuel Goldwyn, there's a bit of trust that's involved. So, you know, going forward, you know, you know just can take it your own direction.
Yeah.
And people have that trust that you know your audience and know how to market to them.
Okay, I love that. All right. Well, now that we're here, let's talk about the film Trouble Man. So, talk to us about the story there. Give us a bit of an overview. We're going to convince folks to come and check it out.
Well, I mean, there was a movie Trouble Man back in 1972 by Robert Hooks. It was one of my favorites of that era, and it was a you know kind of a badass character who was you know kind of like he's a fixer, but he was really all about his community. And so I thought to revamp that title and that spirit of a character, but make it contemporary. And so I had that, you know, I had that in mind, you know, infuse it with comedy and, you know, make it really fun and right for a contemporary audience. And with that, being influenced by the Jim Brown, Fred Williamsons. If I'm the Jim Brown of this movie, I needed my Fred Williamson, and that I found that in Method Man.
Okay.
So you know, partnering up with him, that created the symbiosis I really wanted to be in this movie.
Sure.
One of the stuff that I looked up to growing up, where you had, you know, alpha male Black role models who, you know, who were powerful and you know had their own swagger. And you know, you could look up to, want to emulate. There hasn't been very many, haven't been very many movies that had that composition of fun, martial arts, the culture, music, all of that since really Last Dragon, as far as I'm concerned. Like so, you know, that is a combination that is a winning combination. It's a shame that it doesn't come but a few decades apart. But I want to do something about that.
Okay. Well, so that's actually where I was going next because, you know, full disclosure, I haven't seen the original Trouble Man, but I noticed that in this film, there's kind of a lighthearted, comedic approach to the action movie genre, which is something that we're more accustomed to seeing you in, you know, more serious, more like, you know, tough guy type films. So I thought that felt kind of special, especially, you know, Mike Epps, you mentioned Method Man, and he's great in comedic roles. So talk to us a little bit more about what like life was like on the set with those guys and whether or not what we think of these individuals, especially these comedic actors, has translated into the film. Oh,
it absolutely does. I mean, Method Man is he's so funny. And I feel like, I really identify with him. He's very much like me. We've traversed these really extreme cultures, and we're kind of like, I kind of call it like bilingual. We're folks that are coming from the projects that are just as comfortable in the projects as the boardroom. And so I glimpsed that even in his work. And, here he is, well, my favorite rapper, but I recognize that he's quoting the Beatles and Crosby, Stills and Nash and all of these different, eclectic, different music in his rap song, which is like very much kind of like a page out of like my background.
Yeah.
So it's this diversity he actually has, and it's like we're these cool nerds at the same time.
Sure. Yeah.
So we had met upon different occasions, and I knew he had that kind of alchemy that could be shared with me. So it turned out way better than I even thought, to be honest with you.
Okay, well, good.
He's really fun. He's a really funny guy.
Yeah. Like I've seen him. We've all seen him in comedic roles over the years, and he's a home run hitter there. And so to see the both of you up there together in a action comedy genre for a film, I couldn't wait to get to it. So I'm excited that we get to share this conversation with our listeners, and they have something that they can check out too. So I want to make sure that we touch on, or I guess go back to some of the stuff we were talking about earlier too. So on a more serious note, there's a scene in the film where you share with the viewer, with the viewing audience, the true history of martial arts and its connection to the countries of Africa and China, right? So talk to our listeners about that scene and why you felt it was important to include that in the movie.
Yeah, well, because it's historical. I mean, as somebody who's gone to China several times, from the time I was a teenager, and seeing, for the first time, I'm like, because because religion was banned for so long in China, and there would be effigies of just three people that I'd see over and over, and there's Mao Zedong, and then there was one that was this, clearly a black man. Who, even statues with receding hairline and nappy hair. And I'm like, to learn that that's Damo, that's the father of martial arts, and to know that he brought Buddhism and martial arts to the Shaolin Temple. That Bodhidharma, or Damo, and he was also nicknamed the Black Monk. That's a father of martial arts in China. And a lot of people think that it started with the Shaolin Temple. No, he brought it to the Shaolin Temple. And so I know, we've been denied of our history just over and over. And it's definitely in the news right now. About
Still
that.
doing it.
But a lot of around the world, we're not denied. It's not even hidden. There's a lot of things like even in samurai culture, there's so many stories with African samurai, just these amazing things that our culture is infused all over the world. But as somebody who's grown up in the martial arts, and just to bring out that fact that these kung fu people, the Shaolin Temple that you hold in such high regard, well, that was brought to them by a person of color. And even in China, in Beijing, there's paintings of Damo, and he's brown, and he's teaching monks, and there are other monks who are brown, and that's not an accident. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to bring that and absolutely to be shocked by when we had the first community screening I had was in Miami. When I delivered that information, there was this round of applause that happens, and that's happened every screening.
Mm.
I didn't expect this, but that goes to show that we are absolutely hungry for our place in history,
Sure.
and proud to learn about that. And so, I mean, I feel like any movie I do, yeah, I'm gonna, like, if it's a martial arts movie, I want to make sure if you took the martial arts out of the movie, that'd be a good movie by itself.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And it's got something to contribute.
Yeah.
And so while I have you and I'm going to entertain you, why not feed you something nutritious?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with that. I was on a recent episode of our radio show that we do. We dove into the roots of yoga, and indeed those have deep roots in Africa as well. And that was another thing that was really surprising for me to learn, because when you think about it, it makes sense, because we were in Homo sapiens sapiens were in Africa for such a long time that indeed these things that we consider to be so ancient, they would have roots in Africa.
Martial arts. I mean, even A&E did a big expose on the history of martial arts, and they clarified that martial artists started in Africa, and Beni Hassan, 2500 BC.
Wow.
They were the first martial arts that they saw was depicted on caves in Beni Hassan. So, I mean, these facts are not hidden,
They're hidden from us. But
well, it's a shame that it's just that, I mean, you can Google all of this.
Yeah.
And like I say, A&E did a special on it.
Yeah.
But, it's just, I don't know. You have to be receptive to it.
Yeah.
And, and then I don't know. It's like there's a component where those narratives are not front and center.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think that's a better way to say it too. So, but while we're here, there's another thing that we kind of noticed about the film. So there's a lot of scenes where your character Jackson objects to other characters in the film using the N-word. Okay, so why was it important for you to, I guess, make that statement in the film, even though it was like in a humorous and a subtle way, and maybe what was it that you were trying to accomplish with those scenes in particular?
Well, one of the things is, I have the flexibility and the levity to put some of my own things in there, and that's a word I do not use.
Same, yeah.
I do not use that word, and I do not creatively come up with condoning that word. Just like in the movie, I say to Method Man's character, where it came from. I don't care how you want to try to paint it. We know where that word came from. And as long as that's the same word that's used that you hear before somebody takes another's life.
Yeah.
You can't say that that's a term of endearment. You can't have both. So, so I know we've been, taking chitlins and making a meal out of it.
It's awful, yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's a thing of pride about taking something and reforming it. I get that, but that's just not what it is.
Yeah,
that's just not what it is. It's a very ugly word. The connotation is clear. I shouldn't even have to talk about it.
Yeah.
But we have to look at the comfort with embracing that. Just kind of symbolizes a comfort for, or kind of like being complacent with being less than, and finding that to be comfortable. But I have my reasons why I understand why people are still doing that in this day and age. Because we've been taught to hate each other. We've been taught to pull each other down. But I understand. But that came out of love, because generations ago, the old folks kept the young folks down and say, no, you don't think you anything better than this, because young folks wanted to get educated. They wanted to look that white man in the eye. They wanted to
Be bold.
learn.
Yeah.
They wanted to do that, but then a lot of those young folks wound up hanging from a tree.
Hmm.
And so the old folks pulled them back down and said, no, you ain't no better than anybody, you know, and they kept them grounded to keep them alive.
Hmm.
Well, it came out of love, but we tend to still do that in a knee-jerk response. Well, when the old folks pass on, they don't know that you can prosper from a good education. You can now stand up and do these things, right? They meant well, but it's a cultural thing that we've inherited this tactic of keeping each other down. Now, comedy has been you so black, you this and that. It's always put downs.
Yeah.
Right now, and our music, kind of it start to resemble that and everything else. But yeah, it's just a trip that it really came from love and keeping us safe. Keeping us down meant keeping us safe. But that's a trend we just got to start looking at it. Look at for the truth of it. Yeah, that truthfully, we had to do that to stay alive,
Hmm.
but no longer. And so it's just really kind of taking our time and looking at it and just looking at it from another perspective and see and test it. I'm not going to preach to anybody, but I feel that that's one of the culprits of us allowing ourselves to be called less than what we are.
Yeah, I'd go with that. And if I may,
Mhm.
just to kind of provide some additional framing for, I think, the points that you've made, and you feel free to jump in or correct me if I misspeak here, but
Mhm.
one of the great examples of how our stories were written in this
Mhm.
country, I think you can find an example of that type of thinking in the Willie Lynch letter, which I know is regarded in some circles as a work of fiction.
Mhm.
But I think the thinking really does represent the type of thinking that was prominent during that time. And one of the things that comes from the Willie Lynch letter is, you break the will of these people by destroying the male figure in
Yes.
front of the female, and then she raises the children in reversed roles, right? And
Mhm.
so your point about this coming from love, you're not better than anyone else, coming from older folks to younger folks, I think is I think we see evidence of that type of thinking being established and being implemented into our narratives and our minds and spirits way back during slavery. The other thing I want to point out too is that this is just a fantastic, I guess, justification for you creating gigantic studios so that you can implement subtle and humorous elements like this. Because, like I said, it doesn't feel preachy. Or, like
Right.
you said, it doesn't feel preachy. It just feels like a subtle thing. Some people can decide what's right for them, others can't. And some people have to lead by example. On the scale of a country, things
Mhm.
tend to move a little bit more slowly, right? So, you and
Oh,
I can make a
absolutely.
decision
Yeah.
overnight. But if we both adopt this new way of thinking that, that word doesn't work for us,
Mhm.
then slowly other people, in theory, would follow suit. And the last thing I want to say is that, to your point about this being, a word that often people heard as the last word in their lifetime. One of the things that I say often on this show is that indeed it is the last word that many people heard at the end of a short, hard life in this country only. And the legacy of that word tastes like filth in my mouth.
Mhm.
So this is why, for me, again, not preaching to anyone just like you,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
think that your points are well made, and the fact that you are establishing a new, I guess, line, so to
Mhm.
speak, for this protagonist in your own film where you're writing the dialogue is something that is to be applauded. So I salute you. So
Well,
thank
thank
you
you.
for that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Like I say, we must do this, especially some of us when, there's this whole thing about, um, manhood and, what's a true alpha male? and there's any masculinity is seen as toxic masculinity sometimes. And so, we have a lot of work to do, and we don't have, and it's become commonplace to not to have masculine images, because when you think about it, like really thinking about it, just men in general, or just even Black men, but what out there in media is geared for us? Like almost nothing.
Yeah.
There's no sitcoms, there's no television shows, there's nothing. Yeah. And so, and the business is in the movies and everything, television is in the business of doing the same thing, kind of following a careful plan. And when that plan doesn't look like people like myself, or, having that representation of, I guess, like, what a few of us are doing, they don't recognize it, and they go, well, that's not even in their purview, so, when you really look at it, back in the 70s, why I like it so much, we had so many images. We had our Jim Browns, Fred Williamsons, you name it, Philip Michael Thomas, all these people that were like, had the same criteria. You had the Pam Greers, Tamala Dobsons, they're very powerful, like, in the same way where there's almost every movie or television show has an alpha white male, right? But then we've been relegated to being sidekicks or comic, just kind
comic
of
relief. Yeah.
Yeah. The pat on the head, the non-threatening type of, wow, I like that non-threatening guy, that type of thing. For so long, it becomes, commonplace where we're not represented in the same way that white folks are, right? Like it was in the 70s, because in the 70s, all our actors, they were, the alpha females and males. We don't have very many Pam Greers now, and that whole thing. But I feel like it's making a step forward, though.
Okay.
Because with Aldous Hodge and Sterling and with Brother Ryan Coogler, they're changing it. And I'm so proud of that. And I'm so proud of that upswing, showing that we can have, uplifting, empowering content that sells worldwide.
Yeah.
And so, it's a good time, and I'd like to be part of that trend.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and speaking of uplifting and powerful content, I want to make sure that people do know that this is a comedy and it is an enjoyable film, and they should definitely check it out. So let's before we let you go, let's make sure that we let everybody know just the general who, what, when, where, why, how, all that about the film, so that we can get our audience to check the film out.
Well, it's out now. The movie is out now, and it's on streaming and in certain theaters.
Okay.
It's definitely on Apple and Amazon Prime.
Okay.
And I think a few others. I haven't been brought up to which streaming networks have it, but the majors have it right now.
Okay. So before we let you go, I know that you're always working on the next big thing. Do me a favor, share any social media, any other ways that people can just kind of create some connective tissue with you and all that you have going on, just so folks can keep up with you.
I'm at Official Michael Jai on IG. That's my main handle. And it's just, I believe I have michaeljaiwhite.com on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, in that case, thank you so much, not just for this film, not just for your time, but for a career where you've represented yourself and all of us well. And, I couldn't be happier. It's an honor to be able to talk to you. It's, just the highlight of my day. So once again, today's guest, legendary actor and the star of the new film Trouble Man,